Ahoy there, YouTube! I'm back again today for another game review. And today we're excited to check out Gugong from Tasty Minstrel Games. This is for 1 to 5 players. Take about 90 minutes to play, and it's for ages 12 plus. And in Gugong, this is a worker placement game, but really it's a card placement game in which you are going to be trying to collect jades and build walls and go on a boat and gain victory points and travel around your horse trying to collect tokens and doing a whole variety of different things. This is definitely a point salad style game where all the little mechanisms in the game are interconnected in interesting, weird ways. But does the game overextend itself trying to do that? Is it a good game I can recommend? Let's open it up and I'll tell you what I think. Alrighty then, we're going to take a look at what you're going to get inside of Gugong. So first and foremost, we have our handy dandy rule booklet, 20 pages, double-sided, full color, full of pictures, illustrations, examples. Very well done. I think the last 5 pages are just how you're going to play the solo variant, which I'll talk a little bit more about in the pros and cons. If it has its own special deck of cards, you'll be playing against a guy named Meng. But as you can see, very well done rule booklet. Big thumbs up in the rule booklet. There's also a spectacular 25-minute how to play video, which I will post in the video section down below, the section down below, if you want to do that to learn how to play. So this is Gugong, and as you can see, this is a very large board. There is a lot going on here, so I'm not going to bore you by going into all the minute details. I'm going to try and give you just how you're going to play it at the very basic level. So the big hub you're going to have is this little player area right here. And this is not your typical worker placement game because you would assume that these would probably be your workers, but in actuality, those are not your workers. Your workers are going to be these cards here. And you're going to have cards that you're going to start with, and you're going to play cards out to the different action spaces. Here, 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 and here. We're going to go over what all those different action spaces are in a little bit, but I want you to understand that these are actually your workers. So if you can earn more cards, it's like earning another worker. These guys, on the other hand, these are your servants, and they will do a whole variety of different things. We'll talk a little bit about that later. I'm not going to go into too much detail on what's on your board, but I will say once you know what you're doing, all this iconography is actually incredibly useful. Here's how the endgame scoring works. Here's where you're going to keep track of things that you've shipped. It's all very, very user-friendly, I assure you. So let's go down and tell you how the different action spaces work and how you can take an action space. So first, we'll start down here at the bottom, and this is where you can go shipping. And shipping is a really interesting aspect of the game. If you want to go to a spot where an action is, you have to play down a card, and it has to be greater than that card. If you do, then you can do the actions. However, sometimes you will not be able to do that. Actually, where's the iconography for that one? Yeah, right there. So, you play down a card, and it's bigger than that, then you can automatically take action. So, actually, this is a bad example. Let's pretend that this was a 4 instead. Let's pretend that that's a 4 right there, and I would like to take that action. Well, looking at my hand, I can't play the 1. I could play the 5 or the 9 freely. Now, there are ways to get around this rule, which, as you can see, you can spend 2 of your servants. You could discard a whole other card, or you can just not take the action, which normally you won't do, but sometimes you might. And so let's just go ahead and play this 5 down here. So how it works is I put the 5 right there, and then I take the action there. This card goes face down into my discard pile, and I will actually get this card next round. And these cards are also really important because they're another way you can earn back servants, which is all the way up at the dice up there, and we might get into that. Well, I just want to talk about the actions first. So let's talk about the boating action. The boating action is really cool. It's going to allow you to put one of your 3 little boats out here. And then eventually, if you were able to put your servants onto the boat by taking more boating actions or playing cards that will have special abilities at the bottom, like this card right here, will let you do the action that you're at, but it also will let you do the Great Wall action. And this action will let you do a boating action too. So very cool stuff. But as you go down the river, you can claim prizes. So you can claim 4 victory points. You can claim another card, which, as we mentioned, is a worker. And all the extra cards they have are all fancy cards. Each one of them has something on the bottom. They're very good cards. 2 extra cubes, 2 servants. That's great. And then the really interesting one, if you go to this spot, you will get your double servant, which counts as 2 cubes for most of the time, unless you want it to count as 1 cube. Pretty much, it always is going to help you having this cube. They're very useful. Once you do that, you take all your pieces off, you take your boat off, but then another really interesting aspect of this game is you're going to put this cube down here to say that, hey, now I've taken my double worker. Now, why is that important? Because as you put cubes over here, you are losing your cubes. You will never get these cubes back, and there's a very finite amount of these cubes. You'll get 12, unless you're playing with the more experienced tile, which I probably won't even talk about, but it's awesome. So, that's the first action. That's boating. Let's go over here. This is going to be, I don't remember what it's called, but this is the track that's going to decide who is the first player. If you take this action over here, which is the meanie face one, then you are going to go up on this track right here. And going up on this track is how you dispute all the ties in the game. Now, also, you can do certain special abilities at certain points if you're willing to spend your spaces. So if you're willing to go down 1 space, then you can get back a servant. You're willing to go down 3 space, 2 servants, 7 space, a jade. So it's there's a lot of stuff going on in this game, if you could not tell. So this is going to decide who goes first. The first person to go there just automatically gets this, and then they get to place their cards first in the next round. Next, we have arguably the most important spot on the board here, which is like the king spot, the prince spot, whatever. You go here, and you're going to go up 1 on the track. So now is a good time to show you how you have choices in this game when you go to a spot. So I did this action right here. So let's pretend I actually played this 6 card. First thing I do is I go up 1 on this track, hooray. But then I also would go up 1 here, and if I wanted to spend 2 servants, I could go up 2 on this spot and move up 1 here. So if I was willing to spend 2 servants from my little player area right here, then I could go up 2 spots, bam, bam, 2 on there, and go up 1 on here, which could be really powerful. But the big thing about this is you absolutely have to be up here in order to win the game. And this is a double-sided board, so everybody can fit up there, but if you do not make it all the way to the top by the end of the game, you cannot win. You score 0 points. Whereas everybody else who gets up here is going to get points, and then if you keep getting higher, you're going to get 1 bonus point. So that's one of the main aspects of the game. Over here is where you're going to get asymmetrical special abilities that you and only up to a couple other people are going to have throughout the game. So if you go to this spot, you have to put a higher card, as mentioned. So I put my 9 right there. Then I have a choice of what I want to do. I can take one of these special abilities. And there's a whole bunch of these different special abilities in the game. So you're always going to have different ones you're going to be able to play with. There's morning ones, there's day ones, and then there's night ones. The ones over here are always just going to score you points. This is 2 points per jade. This is 2 points per decree you have, and these are decree. These ones are generally going to be really cool special abilities that you'll have, and then these ones are going to be things that you'll gain normally during the morning phase. So in the morning, you'll get an extra servant. In the morning, you'll go up 1 on this track. Now, how this works is you have to spend the number of cubes listed, so 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, plus you have to pay a cube for everyone else who is already there. So let's just say that red was already here, and I really wanted to go to this spot. I would have to pay 1 cube to pay the cost, and then I'd have to pay 1 additional cube to do that, and then I could put my cube onto there. So it can get pretty pricey the more people put it on there, but once your cube is there, it's there for the rest of the game. You're going to have a special ability. You're going to be able to get extra points or do a whole variety of different things. Very interesting aspect of the game. Do I want to focus on this for the long-term game, or would I rather be focusing on all the other stuff for the short-term game? Next up here, we have the Jade Market. It's really quite self-explanatory. Spend 2 cubes to get a Jade, 3 cubes, 4 cubes, and then eventually 5 cubes to get a Jade. And Jade are going to be worth a whole bunch of points at the end of the game, as you can see right there. Over here, we have the Great Wall. And the Great Wall is going to be built, and when you build the Great Wall, you'll immediately stop, and the Great Wall will score points, 3 points, for whoever has the most pieces built on the Great Wall. So since we're playing a 3-player game in this side of the board, once it got to here, somebody's going to score 3 points. They're going to go up 1 on this track, but then they take their tokens off. But only the winner takes their tokens off. So let's say that there were 3 red and 2 yellows there. The 3 red would go off the board, but my 2 yellow servants would still stay there building on the wall, so I'm going to have a leg up for the next time the wall needs to be built. The other interesting aspect of this is the Great Wall connects directly to this spot right here I talked about. So you can only do these if you help build the Great Wall and it scores. there's a lot of little moving parts and pieces that connect to each other, and while it sounds completely nuts when I'm telling you about it, I assure you in the game it actually is really simple. Last but not least, we have the travel section up here. Everybody's going to have their cool little horse. They're going to be marching around up here, and if you place your card up here, you can move one space, or if you get rid of 2 servants, you can move 2 spaces. Now, these things are really powerful, and they can do a whole variety of different points. They'll let you take extra actions. They'll let you get servants back. They'll let you move up on tracks. Some will get you jade. Some will let you discard things to do certain stuff. But the other interesting aspect of this game, because I keep saying that over and over again, is when you first place, you place it wherever you want. So you just get whatever you want, like, boom, I want my 2 servants back. But this token just doesn't go away. In 99.9% of the games, this tokens is just done for. But no, actually, there's a really convenient spot right here where you can put these tokens, and whenever you want throughout the game, you can spend your tokens to get a jade, 2 victory points, or a servant back. It's incredibly useful, and it can save you in a pinch, especially that one right there. Whew! So that's all the different actions in the game. Last but not least, I'm going to take you up top to the different how the day phase and the night phase works, and hopefully I can get it not too shaky, Cam. So the beginning of the day phase, you're going to be what is that one? You're going to be figuring out who's the first player. So they'll put the first player token back down to there, and then there. Oh, they'll put it back down here, and then they'll be the first player. And then you're going to refill these, because you're always going to have these full. Then you're going to roll these 3 dice. And I didn't really talk about those 3 dice. I'll talk about it more in a second. And then you're going to give people bonuses if they have gone down here in the morning time phase. Last but not least, you're going to gain the number of cubes, the number of servants, as you should in the round. Then you do the day phase. The day phase is very simple. The day phase is just where you're going to take turns doing all of your actions. And the first player goes first, and then after that, it's just clockwise. And then we get to the night phase. And I haven't really talked too much about the night phase, but it's really interesting. Because you know how we've been sliding cards down here to take the actions and then putting the cards back face down over here? Well, now is when you're actually going to be able to get some servants and some victory points if you have smartly taken the cards that will help you out. Because any of the cards that you have down in your discard pile that are 4s, 8, or 3 are going to get you a servant. And the person who has the most, who's going to gain the most servants from this, is going to get 3 points and go up 1 on the track. Yeah, pretty nuts. And then everything on the river moves, and then you just rinse, wash, and repeat. You do the day phase, the middle phase, and then the morning phase, the day phase, and the night phase. You're going to do that 4 times at the end of the game. You're going to score points for being on the track. You're going to score points for your decrees. You're going to score points for the jade. And whoever has the most points will be the winner of the game. If there's a tie, you look over here at the tiebreaker thing. And that, in a nutshell, is how you're going to be playing Gugong. Alrighty then, Gugong from Tasty Dimensional Games. What are my final thoughts? Let's go over the pros, let's go over the cons. First, on the con side, game's not going to be for everybody for a variety of different reasons. First and foremost, this is by no means a light game. Well, once you know what you're doing, it's actually a pretty simple game, and most of the time you're going to have a couple of choices you're going to be able to make, but when you're first learning the game and first trying to figure it all out, it's an incredibly daunting game, and you need to make sure the person teaching the rules is very good at teaching the rules. And this is the kind of game where you don't just want to start it without knowing all the rules. You kind of want to know every single rules, because as I mentioned, everything is really interconnected. Like if you're building on the wall, that's going to be good for you once the wall gets built, because then you can use some of these points, these first player points you've accumulated down here, but at the same time you need to be paying attention to everything over here, because if you don't get to the top of this track, then you just can't win the game. Like you get 0 points. You cannot win the game if you don't reach the top of the track. Now, normally reaching the top of the track, as long as you're paying a little bit of attention to it, is not that big of a deal, but still, there's lots of stuff. Then there's the jades, and then there's the the collection of the tokens. So if you're traveling around, you get to keep these little tokens, but then you can use those tokens whenever you want, but you have to remember that you can use those tokens because they could really come in to help you out, and there's lots of stuff like that. Lots of little tiny things that are connected, and that is going to be a turnoff to some people, and it can lead to analysis paralysis. Now, that being said, I want to put a caveat on that, because I feel like there's 2 types of analysis paralysis in board gaming. There's the type that we all hate, where someone's like, I can do this move, and I could get 5 points. Or I could do this move, and then maybe next turn I could get 7 points. But at the same time, if I did that first move, I think I could still get 3 points on my next turn, so it would be an 8-point versus 7 points. But if I go here and no one else goes there or here, then I could potentially knock out 12 points in 12 points in 3 turns, and screw that. Except that normally takes, about like 7 minutes, and people are all just like on their phone or doing the polite, oh, whose turn is it? Oh, it's your turn? Yeah, deep down I knew. I was just trying to get you to speed up. That's that trick. That's the first kind of analysis paralysis. This game didn't foster that, I didn't feel like. But it does have a second type of analysis paralysis of, oh my god, what the hell do I do? Especially when you're first starting the game. It's like, do I build the wall? Do I go for extra servants at the end of the night phase? Because when you're picking up the cards, because as I mentioned in the middle part, you're going to be putting down cards and then picking up cards, it's like you can get extra servants back. So if there's 2 4s up there, then you might do something that gets you a 4 as opposed to something else, because that's still a good way to get victory points and also to move yourself up on the track. Lots of different ways to score points, and a good type of analysis paralysis, at least in my personal opinion, where you just don't know what to do a lot of the time, but there's still choices in front of you. Now, that being said, I did talk to somebody I played with who did not like that type of analysis paralysis. Like, I want the game to hold my hand a little bit, and this game does not do that. And that I will agree. So the game does not hold your hand, especially when you're first learning the game. Another con that I have with the game, and this is more of a nitpick. I enjoyed the solo version of the game, but it's not something that I'd want to play again. Now, typically, I'm not much of a solo gamer, but I do like to try the solo variants to learn the game, but then also to see if, hey, maybe this is one of those unicorn games like, say, Star Realms or something like that, or Viticulture, where it's like, I like the solo enough that I would actually want to play the solo again and again and again. This one, I think it's a good solo. I really did enjoy it, but I don't think it's great enough that I would want to revisit it. But if you're looking at this as a solo experience, I think you will enjoy your time. But yeah, I did want a little bit more. Another con that I have with this game, this is going to be a con specifically if you're like me. Well, I mean, Tasty Mr. Games sponsors my channel, but if you have a bunch of TMG games, especially a bunch of the large box games, this game is a square box. What? What? I need to put this on my Dominion shelf? No! Tasty Mr. Games, what the hell is that? Like, I know, that is such an odd con right there. But if you're like me, and you're like, it's like, oh, look, this space on my shelf looks nice. You want to put this with the rest of your TMG games, and you can, but it's going to poke out. But, hey, that's more of a nitpick than anything else. Any other cons that I have with the game? The one last con that I have with this game is that I feel like, well, this is a great game. And I'm going to tell you, I recommend this game. I'm going to keep this game. I really do enjoy this game. I feel like it is the kind of game that if it's going to last on somebody's shelf for, say, 10, 20 years, I think it's going to need a little bit more eventually. Not anytime soon, but eventually. Because I'm trying to think, and I don't really foresee too many games of this game being different. Like, I don't see myself looking back at this game in like 3 years and be like, oh, I remember that one time in Gugong where I was able to pull off this magnificent cool trick or something like that. That's just not the style of game this is. There's not a terribly large amount of variability in the game. Yeah, you do have the tokens up top when you're exploring and picking them up that are different, but for the most part, it's probably like the same 7 or 8 tokens. Any other cons I have of the game? No, not really. Moving on to the pros, I really stick and like Gugong. I think it is a great game, and it's immediately going into my collection. So, what do I like about Gugong? Let's start with the obvious stuff. It plays well at 5 players, which for me, when we're talking about Euros, that's always a big thing. More times than not, if a Euro that I like can accommodate 5 players and accommodate 5 players well, it's probably going to go on the shelf. Like, I'm looking over here. I got Viticulture. I got Lords of Waterdeep. I got a couple other ones where it's like, oh yeah, you play 5 players, you're not just 2 to 4. Yeah, come join my collection if you're good. And this one is not just good, it's great. But it does play well at 5 players. Also, I loved the choices in this game. It felt like no matter what choice you made, there was a way that you could spin that choice so that it could become a good choice. Oh, you want to start collecting jades? That's a viable option, because I do like point salad games. That's another con. If you don't like point salad games, this one's probably not going to be for you. Oh, you want to work on building the wall? Well, that's a good one. You're going to get 3 points if you're there. And then I love a lot of the little mechanisms in the game as well. I love the fact that it's not necessarily a race to build the wall, because, if you have a cube there and they build the wall, then your cube still stays there, and then you're in first place on the wall. I like how when you build the wall, then you can start using your tie token. So there's that one track down there. It's got the little weird mean face on it. And the only purpose of it is to decide who wins ties. That's it. So it can be huge, and it is sometimes huge in the game, but also you can spend those when you're building the wall, so you can do a variety of different other things. I like that an awful lot. I love how there was secret elements to the game that you didn't start to realize until, say, halfway through the game or 3/4 of the way through the game. I love when games can do that. Now, obviously, now that I've played this a couple times, I know all those secret little things, but when you're first playing the game, it becomes like wow, I've done a lot of shipping, and now I don't have as many yellow cubes as I would like. Well, whatever color you are. It's like, I don't have enough cubes. And then it becomes like kind of a cube management game. Where like, oh, shoot, I need to get those cubes off the wall, but I really don't want to build the wall. So you're like, somebody please build the wall, but not overpower me, because you need to get those cubes back. And then there's like those interesting decisions when you go shipping. It's like, do I want the double cube? Because the double cube, oh my God, it's a double cube. It could be a single cube. It could be a double cube. It's a fantastic cube. But then at the same time, having an extra card is essentially like having an extra worker. And that's fantastic as well, because I know it's a worker placement game. You'll want more workers. Plus, when you get those cards, all the cards are great. But there's the other interesting aspect. It's like, well, I'm getting this great card, but at the same time, I'm immediately getting rid of that great card as soon as I play it, because I really like that aspect of you can't just hoard a bunch of great workers, because as soon as you spend them, somebody else is going to pick them up. I really like the nighttime phase as well. I thought that was really ingenious. Like most games would have been content with like, we have this connected to this, connected to this, connected to this, and here's this cool new worker placement mechanism. We're actually going to be sliding in cards and taking back the cards and using those. And maybe that's not new, but it's new to me. I haven't played another game that I can think of that does that. Those are all cool, but then to top it off, it's like, oh yeah, but now we're going to take a look at the cards that you collected, and the cards that you collected are going to get you more of those little cubes, more of those little servants, and potentially get you 3 points, and potentially move you up on that victory point tracker, or the king track, because don't forget, if you don't get all the way to the top of the king track, then you lose the game. Very cool stuff. Everyone I've played it with has enjoyed it to various different degrees. Most people thought it was great. I did have somebody who was like, yeah, it just wasn't for me. That was the one person who didn't like how it doesn't really hold your hand. I had another person who thought it was a wee bit too confusing, but they are on the lighter side. I did think it was a little bit of a stretch pushing them into this game, but they were like, yeah, I want to check it out. They still enjoyed it, but they're like, yeah, it was a lot. They didn't end up optimizing a lot of the things they should have optimized. Oh, I didn't even talk about it. I love the variability in the persistent special ability token. So if you go over here, you put down your cube, and then you have a special ability in the daytime, the nighttime, or the end game phase. So there is some variability there. I would love to see more of those tiles. That's what I'm talking about, where I feel like it does need a little bit more. I just want an expansion that's just more tiles. Just give me like 3 pop-outs. So it's tiles for up here, tiles for down here, maybe even like some extra tiles that you can get for shipping or something like that. I think that would just open the game up even more and potentially nail it with Bauer's Bestial. But right now, Gugong, solid, very great game. I really enjoyed this one. It's going into my collection. It's going to be up there next to the other TMG games that I have decided to keep. And this is one I absolutely think, if you're a hobby gamer and you like worker placement games, I think you absolutely owe it to yourself to try this game at the very least, because it does do some very interesting things. The rule booklet's well done, but I do want to give a shout out, and I'm going to post a link down below to this guy who did this 24-minute how to play video. It's an absolutely outstanding video, and no, it's not Rodney, so that's why I want to give it some extra special love. I think it's I don't want to say German, but I think he's like European, somewhere in the European. There's an absolutely outstanding video. Check that one out if you're interested in learning how to play the game. But that is Gugong from TMG, one that I am keeping, and I wholeheartedly recommend you check out. If you enjoyed this review, please be sure to click on that subscribe button down below in the comments below. Let me know. When did you learn... Oh, wait. What was the last thing that happened to you that sucked? What's the last thing that happened to me that sucked? You know what? I got it. I was super excited. I had a Christmas present from my wife. I'm a big John Cusack fan. He's like my second favorite actor of all time. Used to be my first favorite. Now Leonardo DiCaprio's kind of slid in there. But I love John Cusack. I got a man crush on John Cusack. I have a man crush on like 5 men in the entire planet, and he's one of them. So we went to a showing of High Fidelity where he was actually going to speak afterwards, and I was just super excited. I was like, yeah, John Cusack, and I was like, I'm going to get to ask him a question. Well, I didn't get to ask him a question, but that's not the bummer part. The bummer part was the woman that interviewed him, who worked for the theater, was god-awful. Like, it looked like maybe she'd seen 2 of his movies in the 1980s and then just quickly browsed over his Wikipedia. It was cringy. All the questions she asked were just like, oh my god, people were leaving early. That's how bad it was. Like, people who paid $50 to see John Cusack speak were getting so pissed off at this woman being so ungodly awful at interviewing him that they were leaving. But yeah, so that was the biggest setback. But I still enjoyed myself. It was still cool. I can still say I saw John Cusack. I almost got a chance to ask him a baseball question. But there you go. When's the last time something happened to you that sucked? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, thanks for your time, YouTube.